These are the plaintiffs, Richard Weissman and Tricia Horst. Tricia says she and her husband were hired to throw a flamboyant 75th masquerade party for the defendant. The extravagance was huge and cost wasn't an issue until it came time for him to pay up. She and her husband were paid in full, but their hard-working servers and bartenders were stiffed. It's not fair, and they're suing the cheapskate for the $5,000 they're owed. These are the defendants, Neil Zuckerman and Thomas Shivers. Neil says he agreed to pay the servers a huge rate of $15 an hour, and if the plaintiffs promised them more, that's on them. Besides, the servers the plaintiffs hired had no experience. They were on their cell phones during the big party, and there's no way he's paying anything additional. Period. End of story. They're accused of pooping out on the party planners. The defendants will file a countersuit for $4,000 for an unethical taste testing charge.
All parties, please raise your right hand. Be seated. Come to order, please. Litigants have been sworn, Your Honor.
Thank you, Douglas. All right. Kenzie B. Productions Incorporated, represented here by Richard Weissman and Tricia Horst. Okay, you are suing Neil Zuckerman and Thomas Shivers for $5,000 that you say you are out in some bills that they haven't paid, plus your time and energy. You are counterclaiming $4,000 for 2 taste testings, plus your time and energy. Who's going to give me for my time and energy? All right, let me hear from, I guess, you first, Ms. Horst. What's going on?
We were hired to do a catering job for a 75th birthday party, which was a masquerade ball party, Venetian masquerade.
Oh, I wish I had gone. Okay.
Quite extravagant.
Whose birthday?
For Neil.
Okay.
And we were doing...
How many people?
It was 100 to 120 is what we were quoted.
Okay.
So we needed a lot of food, a lot of servers, bartenders, et cetera, people to help set up as well, because there was a lot of decorating to do and a lot of unloading and loading for the space.
What kind of decorating did you do?
They actually handled most of the decorating.
What kind of decorating took place for the party?
Rather voluminous, 12-foot floral arrangements.
Do you have pictures?
150 balloons.
I just want to see pictures. I want to see pictures so badly. All right. Anybody have pictures or no?
Not with me.
Oh, y'all killing me.
We have a couple of pictures of the servers.
Okay.
Which you can see some of the guests in the background, but you can't.
Okay. Let me see those. Tell me what goes wrong here.
I personally and my husband were giving the job to staff, and they wanted...
How many staff was there that night?
9.
Okay.
And so I was given the job to hire attractive young people. They didn't want anyone that wasn't well kept, well groomed, on the floor, serving, bartending, setting up, picking up empty glasses or, food plates, any of that.
Okay.
Both the bartenders that were there.
How many? There's 9 people in question. Do you have resumes for them? Not really, right?
Most of them, yes.
You do have resumes.
Can
I see them? All right. And you also promised me pictures. I don't see pictures.
Yeah.
Oh, I see pictures. All right. But I can't see much here. All right. Wait, is that staff wearing masks anyway? Geez, you could have hired anybody if they were going to wear masks anyway. You're covering their beautiful young faces. All right, so go on.
So they showed...
Did anything go wrong at the party? Okay.
At one point, Neil made the comment that, he wanted them to move around more and be out there serving more. Then I talked to the staff and they said, other than putting the tray under the guest's face, they couldn't force them to eat, and they didn't want to interrupt the conversations they were having.
All right, so
did.
When is the first inkling you have that there's a problem? You find out, let's jumpstart this a little. It turns out that you had promised the waitstaff that they would be getting $20 an hour, and the more experienced ones would be getting $25. And it turns out that you had not promised the waitstaff that, nor according to you, had you authorized her to do that.
Correct.
I would like to see, because that is the crux of the original problem, which was a $433 problem that has apparently turned into a $9,000 problem because now you've all grown to hate each other. All right, so let's talk about this. Do you have anything in writing before the party of what your agreement is, a contract, anything like that?
No.
You can't be serious.
We had done events with them many times.
So what? All of them should be with a contract.
And they've been friends.
I'm sorry, do not use contracts. You're an event planner. Event planners always have contracts.
But they've been friends forever.
But okay, that's who I want to keep as a friend. Somebody who's been friends for years so that there is no misunderstanding later. That way you can work everything out beforehand. It's a good idea, especially when they're friends. So no contract in this case. How about emails before the event in this case that cover the issue so that I can see what the meeting of the minds was beforehand on whether it was $15 an hour? How much did this party cost, by the way?
About $10,000 on our part.
And how much did the party cost entire?
15 to 18,000 total.
On your part.
Yeah.
All right. So you receive a bill. Okay, first of all, tell me what you think the problems were with the party that night.
The problems were that the 7 out of the 9 people that they brought to us to hire did not know what they were doing. They would come out with the food and they'd stand a group of the 3 passers or 4 passers. I had to go over to them and I had to pull them aside to teach them that what you do is you go over to the people, you show them the tray. They can either take it or not, but that you don't all group together. You go in the whole party. The other thing was the bartenders would open multiple bottles of name liquors. Whereas if they just used, and we ended up with, half full bottles, 2, 3 of the same brand.
Right, because if they're unopened, you can go back to the liquor store and say, I overbought. All right.
And in many cases, when we tried to find the staff to do stuff, this was in the preparation, they were somewhere on their cell phones. They were constantly having to ask them to get off their cell phones and come and help.
All right. What did you think you were going to be paying them?
$15 an hour unless they were good, and then we were going to give them more.
All right, so then you tell them, I'm going to pay the waitstaff, you pay the waitstaff. The waitstaff starts to complain to you, this isn't what we talked about, right? And then you send an email to them saying, listen, you shortchanged the waitstaff a total of $433.75. Right. I need you to pay them because, they're looking to me to get paid. And then the fun begins. If you think the masquerade party was fun, you should see these emails, folks. You're telling them absolutely not. How dare you? You folks end up writing these single-space 22-inch emails back about how difficult they were and how cheap they are. And it just went lower and lower and lower from there, correct? Right. What did you want to add?
Very dramatic.
So during the second tasting, we also covered the topic of costs, and we were going to itemize everything. And they said, "No, we know you're going to be fair. You take care of it. I don't want." Did you guys
ever make the statement, "No, we know you're going to be fair. You take care of it"?
I don't know that I would have said that.
That sounds like something you might have said.
Somewhere in that area, yes.
Okay.
If I may.
Yeah.
They asked us if they could send the checks to, make up the difference that they thought that the staff was ordered. And we told them unequivocally no.
No, absolutely
not. And then they
not.
proceeded to do it anyway. They did not do their best.
They were on the phone. I had to tell them to pass. The bartender was opening up. Right. Yeah. And then and it goes on from there. Let me just ask you this. You have a counterclaim against them. Well, you receive a bill now this is a bill that you had already paid?
Yes.
Okay, and it was a bill that you paid for $8,000?
Yes, something.
One of the items was $500 for taste testing.
Correct.
Because there were 2 taste testing.
Yes.
And were you surprised when you saw in the bill $250 for each taste testing?
Not at the time, but later when I learned that if you use a caterer, you don't pay for tastings.
Meaning that's the industry standard. You spoke to that's what you're arguing is that you spoke to other caterers and okay.
Yeah.
So the taste testings, what's the deal here? Why would you charge somebody who ended up using your services $250 for each of the taste testings?
Because our agreement with them was time and materials. And we did not build a profit into anything that was done. We did not build a profit into any
How many meals were served?
2 meals. In fact, they got exhausted and they had to stop at some point because there were just too many items for them to taste.
Did you ever tell them there's a $250 charge for each of these meals that we're having in taste testing? Or it was my time and my efforts and we'll all work it out later? Sounds like everybody was a little
was-
loosey-goosey here.
It was because we've
Very
done
loosey-goosey.
events with them. We've done events at their space, which
What
were
did you
wine
want to show me?
tastings.
For the tastings, there were a large number of the, one of the events there were sushi platters, which were pre-done. The pancakes were ordered.
If you think I'm going to go into how much,
Never mind.
That we're not gonna do.
Half of the food was not prepared by them. It was flown in from people.
Okay, but flown in from people. Okay, gotcha. Let's,
May I?
nope, stick a fork in me. I am done.
Catering standard.
This hors d'oeuvre is done. Okay?
Catering standard.
Everybody stop.
Our
Everybody stop.
experience.
Let me tell you exactly what is happening here. This is a simple problem. Everybody here, I believe, has a very legitimate difference of opinion. You feel that in general, you were generous and you were overcharged and that they spent like drunken sailors your money without you knowing about it. Whose fault is that? It's your fault. If you don't know what you're spending, then you don't know what you're spending. If you don't have a contract that lays out how much is going to be spent on each thing, this is what happened. You feel like you cannot believe that they threw an $18,000 party and are nickel and diming you over $433. Whose fault is that? It's your fault, because if you don't have a contract and it doesn't spell out exactly what the deal is, then here's a surprise. Everybody has a different recollection about what the deal is, okay? I have to determine what the deal is. I may not have to determine exactly what the deal is because you're the plaintiffs and you're the people with the burden of proof, okay? So if you can't prove that it's what you said, I can just call it. But what concerns me is one particular email that I read. This is from Tricia and Rick, I don't know who authored it, to Neil and Tom. We have been slowly hearing from our staff that they, except for one person, did not receive the amount of money we told them to expect and receive. The main staff was told they would get paid $20 an hour unless they did not perform their responsibilities as instructed, in which case they would get $15 an hour. And then the next sentence is, you did not have license to pay them $15 an hour. So this is an admission on your part that there was discussion about 15 versus 20. So if there's no understanding that you're going to decide whether they're great instead of they're going to decide whether they're great, how do you come off deciding that you're going to decide whether they're great? If you in fact admit that you had a discussion with them, that it would be 20 if they're good, but 15 if they're not, and they decide they're not good, then what is all of this indignance about?
Welcome back to the People's Court. Harvey Levin here. Does the defendant have to pay the additional $5?
No,
Why?
because he's the one that made the whole offer.
Well, he's the one that said, hey, I'm not happy with it, but can he rule in this thing? The plaintiff's saying the service was great.
I mean, he's paying for it, so I mean, why not pay the extra $5? I mean,
Well, he doesn't want to pay the extra $5. What do you think? Does he have to pay it or not?
The customer's always right. I've worked in the restaurants, and no matter what, it's always the customer's always right. And the plaintiff is the one that
He made the deal, so he has to live by it.
Right.
Okay, going inside the courtroom.
You don't have a right to the $433.75 under the facts of this case without having a written agreement beforehand, and much less with an email that acknowledges that 15 is what was discussed if the people weren't up to par.
Can I say one thing?
No, you
Judge?
cannot. So therefore, you don't get the interest and you don't get the administrative costs. On your counterclaim against them, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. You behave in a fashion when you get that bill as though it's not an outrage. You went ahead and you paid the $500 for the 2 taste testings, which is kind of an acknowledgement that you expected to pay for all that time and effort and cooking and whatever else, whether it's flown in, prepared by her, or whatever the heck it is.
Your Honor, we can
No,
drop
you
that.
may not. This is the part. What part is this, Douglas?
Time for you to rule.
Okay. So when you go ahead and pay it, and even if you guys did not agree specifically on what the tasting would cost, you certainly agreed on time and expenses. And in a very loosey-goosey kind of way, because you can afford it. So it was just kind of that way until it wasn't. Everybody's happy until they're not. Then they come in front of me. So, but the best evidence of that is that it was paid until there was the discrepancy on the other thing. So on your counterclaim 0, on your claim 0, was the party fun?
It was wonderful.
Good. I'm glad to hear it. Send me pictures.
I
Good luck,
absolutely
folks.
will.
All right, hold on right there, please. So, in what was a very interesting case, if you'll step over here, sir, please. Let me just chat with you for a minute. I mean, this was really interesting, very interesting. I think everybody who watched this learned something, and I hope you learned something. Did you?
We learned about contracts, and
Yes.
you can't trust just speaking to friends or what the past has been experienced.
You learned a big lesson. Thank you very much. So if you'll go out to the officer, it's waiting for you. Okay? Thank you very much. Gentlemen, if you'll join me. Nobody wins anything here. You didn't win this case either. If you'll step right here, let me just ask you something. Did you learn something the hard way here about contracts?
Yes, that you do a complete contract.
Tell me about the party real quick. How great was it?
The party was fantastic with the exception that
The food was really bad.
the food was bad and the
And did
decorations
people
were-
complain afterwards? Food was lousy, didn't enjoy the party?
Nobody
No, but some-
even talked about the food.
Some of us told them that they never even saw the hors d'oeuvres.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it was a bust.
The party was good.
The staff that they supplied was a bust, with the exception of two people who were really good.
But the party itself.
The party was
overall,
fantastic, and I
that's
will
what
be
counts.
sending the judge
That's
pictures.
what counts. Okay, and do send her.
Oh,
She'll
yes.
love to see him.
Okay.
Thank you very much,
Thank
Del.
you.
We appreciate it. Wow, what a case. Harvey?
Okay, Doug. So it is, I'm telling you, insane when you have a really important function like a wedding or a big birthday party, something like that, not to have a written contract where all of the specifics, every single detail you can think of, laid out in the contract.